Okay, Brad, I hit the button.
All right, Life and Grace Podcast. I'm Brad Holman,
Troy Nicholson.
coming to you from the basement here. We're sipping a Weller Reserve, actually.
We are.
Sunday afternoon, and we've had kind of an interesting day today.
We have a very interesting day today, and I'm going to do my best not to burp. Excuse me if I do, because I'm pretty full from the scrumptious food that we had earlier. I'm just throwing that out there because it may happen.
Pork tenderloins.
It was good.
We made little teriyaki pork tenderloins on the grill.
That guy did.
They came out pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty tasty, juicy. We'll tell you, you never know though in
Just
3
don't
hours.
Don't say moist.
Well, I did.
It's juicy.
You did, actually.
I know I did.
So in 3 hours, though, if you're sick,
It was very good.
it wasn't the pork tenderloin that made that happen.
It's probably the salad.
It's probably the salad.
Usually the salad.
Blame it on Stephanie.
Yep.
Or Sam's. Blame it on Sam's.
Blame
We
it
just
on the
mixed it today.
manufacturer. Yeah, you guys didn't make it. You just opened the sack and dumped it out. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I don't know why that's very funny, but that was really, really
It
funny.
may not really be funny. We will wait to see. But we did go to church today together. We had an interesting, where we were going, interesting day, interesting morning. That actually turned into an interesting mid-afternoon. Because we enjoyed our church gathering. There's a piece of hair up my nose, sorry. And we stayed for a meeting. That meeting?
I would say it was a congregational, informative meeting, kind of the status of the church and what they're going to try to do moving forward in relation to some things, topics, and those topics are kind of interesting topics, and maybe we can kick those around a little bit here, huh?
Yeah, we'll kick them around a little bit here, and then maybe tie them into some other things, because basically what most of our podcasts have been about, and we will really like them to be at least a big part of, is our faith. And our church is a big part of our faith in the means that we go there for worship, we go there for instruction, we go there for our biblical knowledge. And our pastor, Dave, we had this conversation earlier, believe that he is a very biblically based pastor. He doesn't think about this stuff on his own. This comes from the Word. And then maybe he, when he speaks, he uses his own personality the same way Paul did when Paul spoke to the churches as well.
And present day experiences.
Absolutely. So there's his personality and we do believe it's still biblically based and God-given.
Well, I know this. I know we've known Dave for a long time. And, the hardest thing about being in a leadership position is that you're going to be scrutinized. And sometimes that scrutiny isn't nice. And but sometimes you need to hear it too, So
I agree.
So I think it was a good situation for people who felt the need to speak, not only to the church council but also to the congregation. It was kind of a honestly, I've never been in that type of an environment before. I had a lot of thoughts and probably a lot of things to say that I didn't say, because I'm that type of guy. I would rather listen to other people, see what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Does it coincide with what I'm thinking and feeling? And then I draw my own conclusions in the end. And my hope is in Jesus Christ. That's the bottom line.
Go.
And I think that's what kind of got lost today, in my opinion, as we sat there and we talked. I just think I've started to realize how sometimes people get too caught up in the specifics, and they lose sight of the whole. They lose sight of the big picture. And it's okay to talk and ask questions, and I thought that environment was very inviting, and it was very comfortable for even a disputing opinion.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you want to get it right, and I understand, especially from Dave's perspective as our leader. He wants to get it right, and he respects the congregation enough to bring them into the conversation.
Yeah.
And to let us all, in turn, share our own opinions. And, and I guess maybe we can discuss where we lie on that, because I think Dave would sure, like to hear it, and if he wanted to watch, he could watch, but other people might learn as well.
Well, yeah. And basically what the conversation was, because we're kind of not really mentioned that, the main part of our conversation, and it's been part of our conversation in our church, kind of underground, really, in some ways, is what are the role for women in the church? I mean, so we can get specific. So I don't know where you fall on it, if anybody's listening, and what your opinions are, and we're just going to give you ours. But in our church here, since April, we've actually expanded the role of the board. Is that what they're called?
Well, council.
The council on the church, to where they went from a few to, I believe there's like 10 total, and they now include women in our council at our church, and women are in a leadership role in several ways in our church, and that's been expanding over the last 3 or so years, where we have women, hang on to your hats, that are actually up on stage and they're speaking. Some of those women are speaking about the Word, and they're speaking from the Bible, and some people have different opinions about that.
Well, I can say this, and I want to start this conversation out on the right foot, because I know the one thing we have already spoken about, you and I, previous to this particular conversation, is that there is one underlying common denominator in every person who was in that room today, which is, unless they haven't been saved, they believe that Jesus Christ was who he said he was, that he went to the cross and he hung on that cross, and he endured not only the physical pain, but the pain of bearing our sin, all of our sin.
Yeah.
And he was buried, and on the third day he rose from the dead, and that he reappeared, and he sent a counselor for us in the Holy Spirit. And that is the common denominator in that room today. And I just think sometimes, I used the baseball analogy earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and use it again, because, I coach a lot of kids in terms of like how they throw a baseball. And so my way of teaching is that you really don't have to know what's wrong,
right,
as long as you know what's right. And so my opinion in the delivery of what's right is what I call the ready position, or loading up, or getting yourself, back, so to speak. And a lot of coaches say different things, but I have a more specific way to teach it. But everybody does it a little differently. Everybody has that, or should have that. And a lot of guys skip that position too, but everybody should have that in their delivery to be able to control the remainder of the delivery and be able to benefit, from their full capacity of core strength and big muscle usage and quick twitch and, directional capability. And you can go on and on and on. But the point is like, that's exactly what kind of happens in the church, is that people forget that there's that common denominator. We all have the same belief,
right?
But and then we get so caught up in the specifics. And I had this really, really old guy. His name was Cal McClish, and his full name, and God rest his soul because he's dead now, but Calvin Coolidge Julius Caesar Tuscahoma McClish. And he had almost 60 years in professional baseball, and I learned so much from him in my own coaching endeavor, and I just followed him around and borrowed a lot of his Cal McClishisms, I call it, and he was so wise. And so with that, I mean, Cal had this basis that, of belief that, like, if you get yourself ready to throw the baseball, that's where the rest of the ability comes from. And he said that if you delve into the minor details, you can destroy the whole. And I'm speaking in like an old fellow, because Cal at this time was about 86 years old. If you delve into the minor details, you can destroy the whole. And so I thought so much about that as he said it, and it's just so simple. And that's how he was. He was a very logical guy, but he just said, like, you can pay attention to so much detail that you can forget the big picture. You know, it's like not being able to see what do they say? Not being able to see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing. But Cal had a tremendous way of describing it, and it's kind of the same thing in Christianity. You know, we all have that same foundation. If you'll get to that foundation every time, you know, you'll be able to do the rest of it a lot easier. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I just don't want to, as a church body, get caught up in these little details,
Right.
and miss out on, you know, what's really important.
Yeah, the ultimate good of the church, the good of the people that go to this church. And I know for some it doesn't probably feel like a small detail, and we're not saying that it's a small detail that women speak or don't speak in a church. And I'm not saying that you're saying that by any means either.
Stop it.
All right. We understand that so many people can get caught up in the weeds, and when you start chopping at the weeds, you destroy the plant.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's
when you
what you're saying,
try
and
to
you're-
walk on eggshells all the time.
You can't
know? It's
do
like,
that.
Like I told you earlier, and I hope Dave gets a chance to listen to this, but like, Dave, you're our leader.
Yeah.
We trust you.
We're following you.
And we're following you. And if there's ever something that you were to do that would be offensive or
Right.
would lead us to believe that it's not scriptural, or we would feel like we're being deceived, we'll come to you with it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, obviously the congregation, you know, is more than just us, but lead courageously. And
We represent at least 4.
well,
So
and
that's pretty good.
The reason I say that is because I think we know what Dave represents.
Well,
I think Dave represents what we just talked about, the foundation.
You kind of
and-
mentioned it. We're not following him blindly.
No.
We believe his basis, his ready position,
Yeah.
is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
He's ready, and he's ready for pretty much everything. I mean, the conversations that him and I have had, and probably you've had with him as well. He knows it's coming. He's not going to enjoy it when it comes, but he knows it's coming. But
Right.
he's ready.
Well, and should we divulge as to what the conversation was?
Well, that's why I was saying it was basically about the Southern Baptist Congress. Their big thing that they had was about the roles for women. And probably more specifically, it was the titles given. Is that really what it was?
Well, that's what it boiled down to, but I think that was the glitch.
Yeah.
I think the gist of it was they're trying to I think I don't know what you would call it, oppress, repress, suppress
It seemed like maybe.
women in high authoritative
It feels
positions
that way.
in the church. Well, it's definitely that way.
Yeah.
And then there's certain churches that decided to get around said, you know, they just changed the title of.
Well, that's what the Southern Baptists want. They're going to redefine roles for women, where you can no longer call them pastors or shepherds, whatever you wanted to call them. They'd have to be called something else. They would hold the same role. You could keep doing what you're doing, but we're not going to call you that anymore.
Well, in regards to staying affiliated with the Southern Baptist
correct.
Church. Now,
definitions.
so now they voted on it, and that happened just recently in
June,
April, May, June, something. I can't remember what they said, but
June.
And overwhelmingly was decided
88%.
that women should not hold authoritative roles
or
have the title
Titles.
or I don't was it the
Titles.
role or I think it was
more
the
as
role.
the titles. No, they had to change what they were called. If you're a woman youth pastor, you couldn't be called a youth pastor.
You can go up and preach, but you can't be called a pastor.
You can't be called a pastor. Now, if you were a man in that same role,
You can be.
Apparently, you could still be called a pastor.
Well, obviously, you see the problem.
If you don't see the problem,
right? So
it might be a problem.
Well, I mean, it just goes along the lines of like, are you still teaching from the same gospel?
Yes, what matters.
that he's teaching from? To me, that's the difference maker, and it goes back to the foundation. It goes back to the base. So who's teaching it? I would hope isn't the concern. It shouldn't be the concern
it's
as
what
long
is
as
taught.
as long as what's being taught is accurate and scriptural.
Yeah.
And so I think it goes back to what Cal McClish said. You got to be careful because you start delving into these little details
Yeah.
and you forget what the basis is, what the foundation is. And the purpose of Jesus Christ is why we all stand up for what we are and what we believe. So, and it's Satan who is also touted the deceiver, the deceiver, the divider, kill, steal, destroy, is always trying to use these things in a way that divides. And the bottom line is we're all part of the body of Christ.
Yeah.
You might be I'll give you a good part.
Please.
An eye.
Okay.
You might be an eye. And I might be a toenail.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad
per
I'm an
the
eye.
scripture, whether you're an eye or a toenail,
Right.
apart from the rest of the body, what good are you?
Right.
If you're just an eye and you don't have an optic nerve that goes to the brain that processes what you see and translates it into like a picture,
If you don't have an ear.
yeah, you don't. Well, yeah. Or if I'm just
Can't
a
hear.
toenail floating around, what good am I?
Yeah.
What good am I if I'm on the body though as a toenail? Honestly,
I would
but the
fungus catcher. I don't know. What are you?
Well, the ultimate point is this, though. It's like no one part of the body
Is
more or less important than the other part because by itself, it's only a part. It's not the body.
Somewhat worthless.
It's very worthless because everything that encompasses the body helps that part also exist and work. So it just seems to me like it's delving into the things that which should be talked about and discussed, but shouldn't create division.
Yeah, and it's obvious, and unfortunately has created division. And the Southern Baptists aren't the first ones that have this issue. They're bringing it up, and as to why after all these years, because I know they've had females in pastoral roles in some way or not or another, and they've had those terminologies out there, but within the last year they've decided to take those away. Now, if everything's been great and everything's been so good, what is their main issue? Why are we doing this? That's a question that I don't know if it's been answered. Hey, everything's been okay and you've been all right with it up till now, and this has been part of an organization for how many years? And now this year it's a bad thing. So there's a question that may have already been asked that I don't know the answer to, but unfortunately the problem is man constructed religion. That's really what happens. And whenever man gets involved, and I mean man as in world, us, men, women, mankind, we tend to screw things up.
Well, and you can take that also, and you can call it denominations.
Yes.
Which is exactly what we discussed today, right?
Things.
So, I mean, I know from being a Christian since 1993, I've been around other Christians in a lot of different, capacities, I guess, and some obviously from different denominations than me. And you hear the comments and the pride that goes along with whatever denomination you are. And I just thought, to me, it's like, okay, River, our church is a Southern Baptist church. But I've never ever gone out in the specifically saying, hey, I want you to come and become a Southern Baptist church member.
Right.
That's not how I approach people.
Right.
My approach to people is I want to tell you about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I want you to know about this fella who did all this stuff for you and tell you about the hope that I have and why it's important. Mm-hmm. And I think that obviously it has eternal implications. Mm-hmm. Where being a part of a church body, whether it's Methodist, Baptist, Catholic, is almost, in my opinion, divisive in itself, because everyone has these. I know we were talking earlier. I said, I wish people would just say, hey, you know what I like when I go to church? I like singing from a hymnal with a choir, as you grew up doing, right? And I
100%.
did. Methodist church kind of has that, and I know, and I like going to the church we go to where they go 3 songs, contemporary Christian worship music, and we get a 45-minute message, and we finish up with another song. I like that. I like being able to sing with, and it just to me is, I just prefer it. So different kinds of worship, and that's all fine. I understand how that can appeal to different people, but again, it goes back to the foundation of all those religions or denominations, which is the purpose of Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross. And that really is the basis for what we all believe. And so, let's not get caught up in the minute details, because it could really, it's Satan, in my opinion, trying to infiltrate us as Christians. And he's trying to tell the eye that you're less important than the toenail.
Right.
When you're not, Troy. You're as important as my toenail.
Not less important, that's for sure.
Okay.
No, and that, if I've ever had an issue in my own mind thinking about religion, what you kind of just covered has always been one of my issues. I've always thought that we should all have the same message. I don't understand where the messages differ. If we're all looking from the same book, and we all are looking for the same person, there is just enough difference that you can feel it. How is this message different when I go to this church versus when I go to this church? How have you guys taken this message and changed it to where it feels different? It shouldn't feel different. If you were one of the first church, just think about that. If we go back to that, after Christ was resurrected, and then went up and he was gone, and they started this movement of following Christ. So these were Christ followers. The first church were Christ followers, AKA turned into Christians.
Or non-denominational.
Non-denominational. They were specifically Christ following Christians. They were not divert into all this. I mean, obviously it started developing because of us as individual people who are sinners. We get our own, well, I don't really like how that makes me feel funny, so I want to say it this way. We start changing the Word of God. We start changing things to make ourselves feel better, and that's not why we go to church. And we kind of talked about this earlier. It's not about, as you said earlier, it's not about our feelings. That's not what we're there for. It's about, what did God say we needed to do? What did Christ tell us to do? He never said, I haven't read where Christ said women shouldn't speak in church. There's plenty of stuff in the Bible that you can go in and says that women were supposed to prophesy, our sons and our daughters, and you can look at it and I guess spin it however you want to. But ultimately it goes back to your ready position. What we need to focus on is here. We're going to worry about all this other stuff, and where is your heart? And if our heart's not in the right spot, then you know what? Quit worrying about these little details, those little funny little things, and get back to your center. Where are you at?
Yes. And so to me, you're absolutely right. It is more of a matter of the heart than anything. And I can tell you what my heart tells me, in our church. And, we're still going there.
We are.
That kind of speaks for itself, right?
Even after today.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah.
We will.
Let me think about it all week. Teasing Dave, I'm teasing. Anyways, we're, if anything, if I needed to get involved, I've never, ever been actively involved in our church except as being in a Bible study group, a small group, on a pretty regular basis when I'm home. But, because I leave all the time to coach baseball, I'm not here. So it just makes me feel like, gosh, I don't want to plug in all the way, because then I'm going to have to turn and bail out on my responsibilities. And when I'm doing baseball, I can't just turn that off. I wouldn't be able to turn off this if I was heavily involved in a church and I just, I'm sorry guys, I got to go do baseball now. I wouldn't, that transition would be too hard.
Yeah.
Because you're investing in people's lives when you do that,
Exactly.
So but now I'm not traveling anymore. I'm kind of a partially retired. I do lessons in my building, but and I'm a little convicted right now. I don't know, but I'm feeling a little bit more like maybe I should become more involved with the church, not just with the small groups, but in what capacity. I'm still mulling that over, but I just hate to see. I've always been someone, in a team environment who's been instrumental in helping to bring the team together and helping everybody see eye to eye. And to me, the church is just like that. Obviously the eye to eye part isn't my eye to eye, it's God's eye to eye. But to help people see it like that is sometimes, I think, fun to make people realize, because we all get caught up in stuff,
Yeah, people get caught up, because they want to bring in their politics into the church, really, and obviously our founding fathers were trying to keep that kind of stuff from happening, but it's difficult. I mean, everybody has their life, and their life comes into church, and church hopefully comes into their life, and then that can be beneficial. But a lot of times it seems like this worldly stuff gets in the way of the church. I see it. And I felt it for a long time. I mean, the worldly kept me out of church for a long time. And I never stopped being a believer. I just stopped being a participator in that. So trying to figure out that took me a while. So the biggest part is, to tie some other things in, is we can't stop losing our hope. What our true hope is. That's what we got to get back to as the church. And today, I didn't feel like there was some of us that felt like there was a whole lot of hope, and weren't sure where our trust should lie. And it kind of goes back to what we said earlier. Our trust isn't specifically in the man, Dave Mitchell, but it's in that he has his faith in who we have our faith in,
right? And
that we know what type of a leader he is, so we can have some hope there. Not
more
he
so,
is our hope,
more so than just behind a pulpit.
He leads, he walks the walk, he talks the talk, and that's the guy that I want in the front of our church, because that's not me. I'm not the guy that could learn Hebrew and can tell me what the word means in Greek and have all this stuff. And nobody wants me up there telling them the word. I could get up in front and maybe sing a song for you, but don't get me in anything too much of anything else, as you can probably tell from these conversations that we've had over the last several months. But that's where I go back. So my trust falls in Dave. I mean, my ultimate hope is obviously in Christ, and I know that's where Dave comes from. So to go back to that, our hope needs to be where it's supposed to be. I'll have some trust in leadership, and that's why I go to the church I go to.
Absolutely. And just a segue on that, what church is sometimes, I think, lost in the definition, whereas it should just be the people. The people are what makes up the church. The building is where we all go to congregate, and so again, back to what I had mentioned earlier, we have a common interest, a common belief, which is the purpose of Jesus Christ.
Right.
And as long as that is the ground floor base of what we believe, then the specifics we can discuss. But I think it's always important to keep that in mind. We always have that a belief that Jesus Christ was who he said he was, and because of that, we can all sit and have disagreements and still be okay. But it doesn't mean you have to jump off the team. It just means we need to have more conversations. But we're on the same team
ultimately. And, over the last 3 years, I hope I don't take you off your point, but over the last 3 years or so, we've had a lot of friends, people that we've known or know, that went to our church that no longer go to our church for different reasons. And you know what? I love the church I go to, but I don't care where you go to church if your belief is still the same. If you have some differences, I don't like the music, or I don't like how Dave says this particular thing, or I don't like women speaking, go to another church, feel comfortable if that's what you have to do. I don't always like to feel comfortable when I go to church.
Well, and
if
you
that
don't have
sounds
to.
Weird.
You don't have to just go to another church for the sake. I'm gonna switch churches, and I'm gonna go to another church. Why not? Why not? While you're attending Westridge, if things get goofy, go try another church. Just to see. Maybe there's something that you see that you could bring back to someone at Westridge and say, hey, you know what? I saw this happen over here, and it was pretty cool. But inevitably your base or your home ground is Westridge, and whether or not Westridge Church is a Baptist church or a Southern Baptist church or a non-denominational church is really not the concern for me as much as is Christ their foundation, and do they speak Bible based teachings, and leave it at that. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Details obviously come after that, but it doesn't have to be a dividing detail, because the bottom line is we all have the same belief.
That's where our hope should be, is in that belief. And that was, I don't want to say it was, I don't know, what's the word, but it was pretty evident, we'll just say it this way, that there was a lot of people that go to our church that had no clue that they were Southern Baptists. Now Dave does mention it when you become a member. It is part of the thing that the spiel, if you will, or he goes over and says, and we are affiliated with the Southern Baptists. Not that we 100% agree with everything in their doctrine, but the nice thing has been, and Dave mentioned this today, that in the past you didn't have to 100% agree with the doctrine of the Southern Baptists, but you could be part of them and have some differences, to where now they're kind of changing that up to a little bit to where, we want you to say this specifically. So there was some of the other issue there. But I have never, I would never at this point in my life go, I'm only going to go to a church if they're this denomination.
Well, I it's kind of like if I tell anybody about my faith, I have never described my faith using the Southern Baptist denomination. Yeah. My faith has always been, I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ was who he said he was, that he went to the cross, he died for my sins, that he rose from the dead 3 days after his burial, and that he reappeared. He sent his counselor to us, and that's what I believe. And I think if you'll accept that and believe that, the rest of that stuff is going to work itself out, but it doesn't change the base.
So that goes back to your ready position. That's your ready position, right?
Right. And then how you move from there, it's largely individualized. How it depends on your physiological makeup, and what your capabilities are. And some guys are tall and skinny, and some guys are short and stocky, and some guys have hip mobility issues, and there's a lot of things. It's in Christianity, I guarantee you, there's, like you said earlier, you sing, you don't teach or preach. That's not really what you're comfortable doing, and I've always felt like somewhat of an encourager to people, and as I've gotten older, I've lost a little bit of that, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's almost like nowadays I'd rather keep to myself than go out
Yeah.
there and encourage people. But I do largely with kids that I work with in the building, and that's a byproduct of the lessons that I give. But and nevertheless, it always gets involved. But we talk about all this stuff like it's make it or break it, and it's just not. It's in the end game. In the end game, I don't think that you're gonna get shut out because you don't, or that you think women can or cannot speak in the church.
Or you weren't the right denomination,
right? Or you went to the wrong church.
You're dumb. Didn't you see it in my word where it said this? No, it didn't say anything about a denomination.
I don't know that it did.
It doesn't say anything. It talks about having hope, having the faith in your hope, and the trust and knowing where your truth comes from. I mean, those, and then having the love as well, right? Having the true love for yourself and for your neighbors as you do for yourself. So, but making sure you love those others around you.
Well,
is a big part of it.
I think, we were talking about love earlier, and I think love is such an incredible word because it's just so incredibly broad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think there's any way to encompass a definition of love except
Christ,
God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be the easiest way to define it would be that God is love. And, why don't we take a break and we can come back and talk about that?
We could talk about it.
Because love's a good word.
Love's a good word. We'll come back and talk about love.
Yeah.
Maybe today, maybe not today.
Well,
We'll
either
see.
way. If we're wearing the same
happens.
shirts, we're talking about love today. If we're wearing different shirts, we're probably talking about love tomorrow.
But we'll talk about it. So don't forget, no matter what happens, like it or not, share it if you can, comment if you want to. We've only had a couple comments. One of them wasn't so nice, but that's okay. We'll take it.
We're not trying to make
I've had worse comments.
Yeah.
And
if
I've had
this is the
good
worst
comments.
thing I do,
you can
I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
trash me all you want.
Yeah.
So Life and Grace podcast for now.
For now. I think we're going to come back.
We're good.
I have a strong feeling we're going to come back.
Well, all right.
Maybe we can switch shirts. You can wear mine, I'll wear yours.
We could.
We'll try it.
I don't know. I'm sweaty. All right, Brad, you won. We're back. Same shirt. We didn't change. We changed underwear.
I thought
but we're wearing different.
Backward. I turned it inside out. So I didn't have to get the Fermunda cheese on me or anything.
Anyway.
So anyways, we just busted into the word love, and when we did that, for me it was hard to walk away from it.
You're good.
But just real quick, we defined obviously love as God. God is love, and to me that's the easiest way to define it. Though there are many different forms of love, and over the course of time, I'm sure that there's been some man-made versions of love, and so we're not the foremost enthusiast on love, but I know I have loved, and I know I have been loved.
I'm an enthusiast.
You are?
I don't know that I'm a
enthusiast, meaning that you do it. You do it on a regular.
I love on a regular basis. No, we're not the most. I'm not the most knowledgeable person on the subject as to all the differences and
How
the
can
nuances.
you be knowledgeable, though? Think about that. What you just said. You're talking about love. How can you be knowledgeable about love? Because to love. Or to be understanding of love, you have to feel it, don't you? Or have experienced it?
Right. And that's why I think I feel I'm fairly knowledgeable.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Right.
Otherwise, how can you understand it? How can someone who's never loved understand what love is based on a definition if they've never felt
more
it?
so, and it's not the giving all the time, but it's the receiving that I probably gained my most knowledge of it, I would say. But
of love, you mean?
Of
Somebody
love.
giving you love. That's taught you more than you actually giving love?
Yeah, I mean, because it gave me the basis of wanting to give that.
Because the way it made you feel.
Right. And because I think ultimately is because God loves us no matter what. That's where our basis for love comes from. Because if we have that unconditional love, you know what? I don't know that I like that either. Is God's love unconditional? Because I about said that, and I'm not so sure that it's not necessarily unconditional.
I think he loves us unconditionally, but I don't think that means that we're void of potential consequences for our behavior and decisions. You know, so I think sometimes love is not just, you know, giving you everything you think you need or want. Love sometimes is a heavy hand.
Yes.
You know, and I think so. I think God, I think he does. I think he's all about love. I think everything that he does to everybody is ultimately because of love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we might not see it that way.
When
it happens to us, you know, because it's not always fun, but it's probably needed.
Yeah.
And ultimately, in the big picture, which is what we were talking about earlier with our church and all that, it's like in the big picture again, you know, that's what it's for. Inevitably, God wants us to love him.
Yes.
But he's not going to force that.
Right.
He's gonna love us and continue to love us despite our shortcomings.
Yeah.
And inevitably, eventually, hopefully, we start to kind of reciprocate, you know, in regards to that. And I think that goes hand in hand with any relationship, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, what were your thoughts on love? And just as we kind of hit right on that word, and it was just boom, and I sit here and I'm just rambling. But I
know you obviously you have some potential scriptures you probably want to go over, or some and your thoughts, and mine weren't quite as prepared, I guess, because we just kind of, you know, I was thinking, we'll definitely talk about a few things today. You know, maybe hope and faith, and we wanted to talk about our church situation today. But love, you know, ultimately, God gave, just real quick, God gave his only son to be, just maliciously tortured. So that's love? Is that love? That's, you know what? It is.
Well, he did it for the sake of...
He did it for the
restoring
love
all of mankind.
And that's the ultimate love. So basically what that, to me, because it is, that was a show of love for us to have Christ being beaten and tortured and crucified.
For what?
For us. For all of our shortcomings, all of our sin.
Christ didn't die because of something he did.
He didn't die for anything that he did.
He died because of something we did.
We did and will do and continue to do because God loves us that way, right? So, I mean, that almost sounds unconditional to a degree, but at the same time, we also have to go, I love you too. Right. We have to return that. We have to say, okay, I accept that. And when you don't accept it, and that's where I'm saying it's unconditional, because God will let you go and be that on your decision. So, and I guess, you know what, ultimately I think that's love as well. Maybe that is really truly unconditional love, to go, you don't have to do what I tell you to do. You don't have to reciprocate that love to me, but I'm going to love you so much that if you accept it, you're good.
Yeah.
And if you don't accept it, that's your choice.
Right. It's 100% your choice. And I think that's the difference in terms of eternity.
Yeah.
Is, you know, and that's the hardest part of all of this. You know, as a Christian, the hardest part for me is that I want everybody that I know, everybody that I've ever had a conversation with and liked and hung out with and became friends with and played baseball with, and these people that have been in my life, who are just great people and from all facets of life. But I want them to have the same hope I have, and I don't know where everybody stands on that. I'm not trying to push it on anybody, and that's fine. But the point is like where it comes back to love. It's like, what is it, And to me, love is the willingness to give yourself of yourself without expecting anything in return. So you can love because the person you're loving really doesn't have any predetermined expectations of what that is, So it's just such a broad topic. But I wanted to kind of read this First Corinthians verse that I printed off in very large print so I could read it. I'm still going to put my glasses on, but nevertheless, it's
okay.
It's kind of a definition of love per the Bible, and it's Paul's letter to the church in Corinth,
right?
And he just wanted them to know because they were making a lot of decisions on their own, and they were making all these decisions that
based on what, right?
You're right, yeah. So. Anyway, so this is what love is. This is 1 Corinthians 13. It says, if I speak in tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. And then it starts talking about love, and it says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth, it always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled, and where there is knowledge, it will pass. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see, only a reflection as in a mirror, that we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know in fully, even as I am fully known. As now these three things remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Mm-hmm. And, love is a word in that passage that just like, imagine trying to do all that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you, by the description, can. It comes with a intense, like, passion, care for the person that is on the receiving end of it. And these things, in my opinion, just happen because of love. This is the description of what love does, what it shows, how it manifests itself.
Right.
But the love part is going to be first. And this is all the stuff that comes from it. So, how do you I don't know, how do you get to that place where you love somebody? Is it, because I know there's different forms of it. I love my wife, obviously, but I love my kids. I love my brothers. I love my pets.
Yeah.
I love the birds. I love to watch the birds. I love, so the point is there's so many characterizations of love.
And most of those, I believe, is because you're receiving something. It's to love something when you don't receive anything back. That's the hardest. When you're watching the birds, you're feeling the joy.
Yeah.
You're feeling something from, not that they're giving you something
They are. They just don't know it.
They just don't know it. But you're feeling something in return. So that, I mean, by the joy of watching, you feel this. Oh man, I just love this. This is fantastic. So, loving the neighbor, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but last night was a weird night. And I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm going to say it anyway. Last night, Brandy and I went to a local little dive bar, and we were there for a few hours, and it was a mixed crowd.
And you went there to listen to music?
We went there because there was some live
and...
music, and we like to listen to live music. We enjoyed together a few weeks ago. We went to a place here in town and listened to a guy sing, and then Brandy got up and sang, and you and Stephanie got up and sang and played some songs, and I guess I did sing one.
That was a blast, yeah.
Had a good time. So we enjoy that atmosphere. So Brandy and I we were just the two of us. The little one was off with some friends of hers for the night. So we go to this bar we've never been to before. And later in the evening, I noticed there was two guys down at the end of the bar that were together. So
not together.
They were together. They came together and they were leaving together. Two gay men down at the end of the bar. It was very obvious. And I'm not saying, being homophobic or anything, but it was fairly obvious that they were two gay gentlemen. And I saw them. I saw lots of people. I saw, a couple alcoholics there. I saw a couple country guys. I'm just saying there's people there. And I didn't have any hate in my heart whatsoever. But later, Brandy got up to go smoke a cigarette. And one of the gentlemen came over and stood in front of me at the bar. And I could tell that he was standing in front of me, like checking me out. It was pretty obvious.
Up and down. Giving the old up and down.
He didn't say anything. And then he went away back to his little friend. And then within a minute, he come back and was a little bit closer and asked me if I want a lemon drop. I don't know if that's what the heck a lemon drop is all about, but was asking me if he wanted to buy me a drink, Brad.
I think a lemon drop is a shot.
It's a shot. It's a drink, but it's a shot that's about like that.
It could be something.
It could be some terminology that I'm not aware of.
Gay arena that it means something else that we don't really, maybe not rather know.
My point really was going to several years ago. My first reaction would have probably been get the away from me.
Yeah.
I don't swing that way. I would have been combative right away without him even saying anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that last night. I took the road of you do you. I mean, I hope my thought wasn't I should talk to this guy. We talked about it today, and Brandy and I talked about it. We probably should have asked him, do you know Jesus?
Uh-huh.
My first initial thought was, no, he does not. And I don't know that.
Right. And that's an assumption. Isn't that a shame that we assume that?
That's an assumption that you're doing what you're doing, but at the same time, I've got my own sins, and I confess I know Jesus.
Sure.
So anyway, my point was,
or maybe you just wanted a lemon drop.
I was like, I didn't take the lemon drop. So anyway, while that was going on, he moved Brandy's beer over, and I said, "Hey, that's my wife's beer. Can you let that sit there?"
Okay,
so
she's
outside smoking. Yeah. So that was me saying, without saying, that's my wife's beer.
I don't go that way,
fella. Yeah. I'm married,
fella.
Thank you, fella.
Did he go by fella? Was that?
No, he believed he's Tina.
Well, that was
this guy's name. I don't know. One way or the other. But
either way, it's so confusing.
Yes, a little bit confused. I was flattered in a weird way. I don't want to, hey,
because he was coming on to you.
I still got it.
I got it.
But my point,
how old was he? Was he a younger fella?
Probably early 30s.
Oh yeah, so you do still got it.
Probably early 30s.
Yeah.
I'd say
early mid-30s coming on to an older fella.
55. Look at me. But my point, ultimate point, not just to be silly, was that I gave him compassion and love. I didn't come at him with hate. I just was like, no, thank you. Thank you for being the way, I'm fine, whatever. But before, I really think it's a lot because of where I've derived, my heart from lately. Is I'm trying to be compassionate to somebody else's beliefs, and if they want to be that way, they can, and I'm not gonna attack them. I'm not going to be the guy that attacks them. I may not believe in what they believe, and I wish that they didn't probably believe what they did, but I felt like I was being loving.
Yeah.
And not as loving as he wanted me to be.
Right.
But I was being loving in spirit.
Oh, you're talking about
there
Tina.
was no love. Yeah,
you're
Tina.
not talking about God.
I was
You're
being
talking about
loving,
Tina.
Yes, Tina.
Because God would have probably wanted you to be more
God
loving
wanted me
too,
to probably
in a
set him
different
down
way
and
than
talk
Tina.
to him, even more so.
Well,
and
then different way than Tina
ultimately,
wanted you to
right.
be. Though.
So I believe that's me being more loving to my neighbor because I didn't come at him with hate, and I knew that he did not believe what I believed.
Well, he didn't know what you believed either.
Right. And
So
I just felt,
he felt
that
okay.
He felt, well, he didn't know what I believed. And that makes me wonder sometimes too. What do I put off?
Yeah. Well,
I wonder. I'm not saying my gaydar. I'm just saying, what do I show the light?
Right.
What do I show? Maybe sitting in a bar drinking beer, most people are thinking, well, he doesn't believe in God either. Some people will say
that might be a stereotype.
Yeah, much so. As we sit here,
but I mean, you're
whiskey.
glowing right now.
Yeah, it's
I see. Oh, it's the reflection off your head.
Don't mention the Band-Aid.
I'm teasing. Anyways,
anyway,
no, but I think the point of the story, it kind of goes back to love. It's not that it get the same kind of love. Nevertheless,
well, I guarantee he's used to being if that was most men, he would be ready for some violence potentially.
But why would he continue to do it if that was the potential?
Well, why do men pursue women constantly when they
I don't know.
rejected?
They don't get beat up though.
Sometimes,
maybe.
Depends on what they do. But yes, I know your point.
So I also wanted to talk about love real quick in a little different,
quite a bit different light.
Yeah, a little different light. Yes. I have so many things to say, and I'm not saying it. And maybe as we get more comfortable doing this, you'll get the real Brad Holman because I've got some pretty interesting.
As Brittany would say, is a lot of butt stories.
Yeah, a lot of different perspective for sure. But the word love also from the Greek word agape means charity. Charity is a form of love. So not that you're giving because someone else is super needy, but that you're giving because you're willing to give. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a pretty cool definition of love is my willingness to help you, to share with you, to provide for you, to care for you, whatever it is that I'm doing for someone else. I'm doing it because I want to, and I don't expect anything in return. Yeah. And I think that is, to me, where love in the world, according to the world's perspective, kind of gets lost. It's not about like reciprocating all the time. If you're married to a woman and you love her and she loves you and you scratch my back, honey, I'll scratch yours. You do all those things and it's a reciprocating type of a love. And there's
relationship.
Yes, it's a relationship, and that love is fine. But I'm talking about the love where like somebody can't give back to you.
Yeah.
They don't have the means to give back to you. Mm-hmm. And, so it's not always about like, I give you, you give me, Mm-hmm. There's some people that can't.
Yeah.
They don't have the means to. So, I think from a perspective of Christianity, the biblical perspective, to me, love has more of of course there's different kinds of love, but I'm talking about the love where it kind of relates you to someone who you don't even know, So love doesn't have to be towards a specific individual. it could be love for mankind, you know, which God has, right? Love for mankind. So you learn to approach your fellow man in a way that isn't just because they're your cousin,
Yeah.
or because they're your husband or wife.
Yeah.
You learn to approach people in a way that, hey man, you need me, and I have the means to help you, and I just want to help.
Yeah.
I think the hard part and another problematic part is, like, you know, a lot of people feel like, oh, if I'm going to give that guy $20, I want to know what he's spending it on.
Yeah,
You know, I don't want him to
conditional.
go buy alcohol. You know, so being able to help someone sometimes, it becomes very conditional. So, you know, how do you do it? How do you love unconditionally or without expecting anything in return when you're also concerned about, like, okay, are they taking advantage of my hospitality? Are they mistaking my kindness for weakness? Or are they truly in need, and the things that I do and say might actually impact the rest of their lives?
Yeah, God definitely would say, help one another, but you still have to have discernment to understand when somebody starts to take advantage of you, because people will. And no matter really where their beliefs lie, they have the potential, because we are sinners, to take advantage of one another. Because if you're one of those people that are just takers, I know a lot of takers. They feel, well, you owe me that because look at you, Brad. Look at all this stuff you got sitting around here. Look at this funky bus. I mean, if you can buy that, you should be able to give me $20 when I ask for it. Because you obviously just throw money away all the time.
I can hit you in the head with a hammer when too.
I could, very accurately.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's people that have that. So it's okay to have those borders, but at the same time, you can still. It's weird and it's very difficult to still love that individual and go, you know what? I love you, and I love you so much. I'm not going to help you anymore.
Right.
I'm going to keep you here, and I'm going to think about you, and I'm going to pray for you. And that ultimately is the love for your neighbor.
Yeah.
If you can pray for somebody, legitimately pray for that person's well-being. You don't always have to put the hand out.
All right.
You don't.
Sometimes it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Sometimes putting the hand out, it can be the problem.
That is a lot of the problem.
Yeah, the enabling
with some people.
Yeah, so
So
we don't have
lots of things.
We don't have to beat it up.
It's a big topic.
We can love can be a part of every topic we'll ever have. I mean,
yeah. Well, we need to come with love, right? Is
that
what you're saying?
Well,
ultimately,
Jesus did.
He did. Every conversation, he came with love. Whether he was saying, "Hey, Pharisees,"
yeah,
in his heart, he was hoping
they'd change.
That he could change them, and he did.
Well,
some.
Yeah, he did.
Nicodemus
for sure. Yeah, Nicodemus changed. But another thing too is you take into account, when Jesus was here on this earth, which is, to me, the best account there is,
right?
Because it's a good way to model ourselves.
Yeah.
Children
love.
flocked. People flocked.
Flocked. The needy, the sick,
the broken, the children.
Yeah.
And they flocked to him. And I think if you look at a lot of things in terms of whether it's the church or the non-church or whatever, what are people attracted to? And if you are a Christian or a self-professed Christian, and who you are isn't appealing to people.
Yeah.
Not that you need to jump out there and try to change who you are necessarily, but I mean, what you have, it should be enticing to people.
Yeah.
I otherwise, why would I want to do it? Why do I have to, in my own world, why do I have to be dull and, the Christians that I first came into contact with, they were righteous Christians, and they came at me, and I was like, very, very, I was not enticed by it.
Yeah, because they didn't come at you with ultimate love. That's the crazy thing that Jesus did.
It was judgment.
In my thought process, especially watching The Chosen that we've talked about, that we like as a biblical presentation of the New Testament.
Go watch
from
it.
all of it basically takes the gospel from all the points of view, kind of throws them all together.
And it has a personality to the characters, which is
so
so
unbelievable.
Cool, man. It's really, really good.
I-
The Chosen, highly recommend it.
To me, the Bible just comes alive when you can see the interaction. But Christ judges as he's loving, but the person that he is really ultimately judging doesn't feel judged. They feel healing. They feel the love from him. But he is saying, you're not doing what you're doing. You got to stop doing it. You have to do this, and you have to come follow me. That's judging them and what they've been doing. But he just grabs a hold of them because they can feel this unbelievable love that he has for them, and they know he's not just telling me that I'm an idiot. He's saying,
I love you and I
I
want you
love
back.
you and I want you, and you can come with me, and this is going to be fantastic. Just come on.
A person's soul. You know a person's soul, and this isn't my own words, but I'm going to say it, and I don't know where I heard it, but I think it's really, really cool, is a person's soul is valuable when Satan and God are fighting over it. Yeah. Wow. It's just like, okay, so whose side are you on? And I don't understand. I don't even fathom why someone would choose the side of evil or bad. I mean, I've always been for the guy in the white hat, or however you want to describe it. I don't care. I mean, you can go to Star Wars, you can go to Harry Potter, you can talk about any secular movie you want. It's still all based on good and evil,
always,
and love. And so, it's like, why would anybody, I don't understand taking the side of the bad guy.
Yeah.
Unless it's an underdog situation, but that doesn't make him a bad guy. He's just an underdog.
He's just misunderstood sometimes. But yeah, I don't either. I don't know if somebody truly understands what God is and understands the word and where they're coming from. Sure, you may not know 100%. You just have to put your faith, and you have to hope that what this book says is true, and just trust that it is. And apart from that is hell. I mean, why would you want to live any other way? It doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't get it.
Well, maybe we need to be coached. Maybe we need to take some.
Always. I feel it doesn't hurt.
Well, understanding different perspectives is not a bad thing. However, you got to be careful.
Because you can understand that.
You can fall prey. Well, I think it's beneficial to know your enemy.
I probably do know, but yeah.
It's very beneficial to know your enemy.
Yes.
I don't necessarily mean I want to worship, or maybe I don't want to study. I really don't want to know him that good, but I think it would be good to know.
He knows us very well. That's the scary part. We don't want to forget that.
And he knows Scripture.
Knows Scripture better than we do.
Yeah, and he
was part of it.
Been given this place.
Yeah, and he was the worship leader, and which kind of bothers me a little bit because I love the worship part of it. But now that's why he's coming at us so hard, because now we're the worship leaders.
Right. Yeah,
we took his place.
By the way, we should mix another song on one of these things.
We took his place.
Yeah, but you sing better than he did. He's a brutal singer. That's why they cast him out.
Yeah, Charlie Daniels got him good.
Yeah, that's right. Devil went down to Georgia. Yeah, because he tried to be like God in heaven.
Exactly.
He could have been Michael in heaven. Instead, he ended up being the devil in Georgia. He chose wrong, and unfortunately, we know the end game. Yeah. So it sucks for him, but nevertheless.
Anyway. Yeah,
we all got a choice.
So love your neighbors as yourself.
First and foremost, love God with all your heart, soul, and your mind.
Yes.
Second, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
That is the first two and most important commandments, right? So, I guess if you live by that, but love is not a choice. It isn't. It is hard, but love to me is it's a feeling. It's a decision that you. It's a choice, but you make a choice to forego yourself because you're actually vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because someone else is in your life, and you know what? That person might screw up your life. You know, it's scary. That person could screw up your life.
Had it.
I know you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not totally screwed up though. There's still a chance.
There's the hope still.
There's hope for Troy.
All right. Well.
Anyways,
That's some of the love. We talked about it. There's a lot we can talk about it again.
We can go on and on and on and on. I mean,
we can always have part of it.
Well, I love you.
Well, I love you too, brother.
And that's what it's about for me. Yeah. It's just, what does it mean? And do you mean it? Do you mean it, or are you friggin'? Are you just saying it because?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of times
because
that
it's
happens.
popular, and but again, to me, it's not words; it's actions.
It's actions more so than anything.
Yeah. So if you're loving someone, then there needs to be something that shows that. And if you're loving God, I think it's the same thing.
Kind of goes back to works.
It goes, well, you're not working for love, but you're showing the love that me or anyone would have in a relationship where you're saying, hey, you know what? I want to spend time with you. Mm-hmm. My youngest daughter just got engaged.
Yes.
Yeah.
Getting married soon.
Yeah, and she and her fiance have, since they met, not spent a freaking minute apart except to sleep.
And work. Now.
Yes, and work.
Yeah.
Right.
Normal.
And the sleep
but if they're not
work.
sleeping or working, they're together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that is love, because they're just, all they want to do is be together and experience life together. And, it's just, just, you can't put a time frame on it. You can't put a level of intensity on it, because there's so many different facets of it and what it means. The love you have with your wife is going to be a lot different than the love you have for your daughter or your sister or your animal. Right. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Love. Anyways.
Goofy.
Yeah. But that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. You're done now. We're not coming back today.
Nope.
Next time you see us, we're probably going to be wearing different shirts and our own underwear. So thank you for hanging out.
By the way,
again.
Have left much too big a pocket, man pocket in my underwear.
Like and share.
Yeah, I'm swimming.
Comment on his weirdness if you want to.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that's all right. We're all weird.
We're probably going to get weirder. We're going to get more comfortable doing this, and you guys are going to start to see the real Troy and Brad, and it's going to be fun.
Brad's weird.
We're going to have fun.
Just warning you. Brad's
we got
weird.
some thoughts and quirkiness that probably is not normal, I would say.
In my world, it seems normal.
Well,
yeah. So, thanks for listening to Life and Grace Podcast. Take us out, Brad.
Take care, guys.
You gonna take us out? Take us out properly,
Brad.
Take
us off. Hey, give us some, first of all, some likes, some shares.
Yeah.
Subscribe. We love you guys. And really, honestly,
10 of you.
I'm selfish, and this podcast that we're doing is for me.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy this time I spend with Troy, and so realistically, it's selfish, and I hope you guys can benefit from my selfishness, because Troy's a wonderful dude, and I love hanging out and talking with him. So with that said, we will depart, and Life and Grace Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Give us a ding, Brad.
Oh, yeah. Is that what you were talking about earlier?
That's what it was.
I came up with this long spiel, and all you wanted me to do was hit the bell?
Hit the stinking bell, man.
Nice.